You're not worried about getting robbed. You're worried about something worse. The moment the system looks at your money and decides it's suddenly worth nothing. It's 1925. You're in Lisbon with a pocket full of 500 Escudo notes that are flawless. Not good counterfeits. Flawless because they were printed by the official printer for the Bank of Portugal on the real plates, exactly like the legitimate notes. And that's your favorite joke. You didn't fake the money, you faked the permission. So here's the question you're betting an entire country won't be able to answer fast enough. How can money be real and illegal at the same time? And if you can manufacture real money, can you print enough to buy your way into the central bank itself? Then rewrite the past like it never happened. Tonight, you're the scammer. And the scariest part isn't the police, it's mathematics, because sooner or later, two serial numbers collide. In your world, what makes a banknote real? The paper, the ink, the signature? Or the fact that people agree to treat it as real? You don't need philosophy to run a scam, but you do need one ugly truth. Money is a social deal dressed up as paper. In Portugal, the Bank of Portugal is the issuer. If its notes are legal tender, it's because the state and the financial system treat them that way. And in the 1920s, those notes are inconvertible. No gold redemption line. The note is the value, as long as people believe it. Now zoom out, because you love the supply chain more than the bank vault. The bank doesn't have to print everything inside its own walls. It contracts specialist security printers, like Waterloo and Sons in London, who produce banknotes under contract using plates, dies, and tightly controlled routines. Fun fact you keep in your back pocket. Under earlier contracts, Waterloo printed hundreds of thousands of 500 Escudo notes of the Vasco da Gama type for the bank. At the time, a 500 Escudo note is roughly worth about £5 sterling. That means a single piece of paper in your pocket can buy real things, and more importantly, it can buy real trust. So here's the doorway you plan to slip through. If a banknote is physically indistinguishable from a legitimate one, then the public treats it as money long before any courtroom argues about authorization. A banknote is real because the issuer recognizes it and society accepts it. If you can hijack the issuer's printing pipeline, you can create money that's physically genuine, even when it never had the legal right to exist. Why steal from a vault when you can steal from a procedure? Because you're not a craftsman, you're a paperwork predator. A vault has locks, guards, guns. A procedure has something softer. Everyone's desire to keep the day moving. You've already learned that big institutions don't fail because nobody is smart. They fail because responsibility is diluted. Everyone assumes someone else is doing the annoying verification. So you aim for the quiet back hallway, where forms travel, signatures get copied, and urgency becomes a substitute for proof. You study issuance rules and internal routines, and you become obsessed with serial numbers, not the art on the note, but the admin behind the note. If no one systematically checks whether two notes share the same number, then the perfect paper can circulate for months. You even notice, or convince yourself, that the bank doesn't have the kind of dedicated internal machinery that treats duplicate numbers as an emergency. You don't need certainty. You just need a gap wide enough for arrogance to fit. A vault is protected by hard security. A supply chain is protected by soft trust. And trust is cheaper to defeat. How much new money can you inject before the system notices? And how arrogant do you have to be believe you can calculate it? The early 1920s are noisy, politically noisy, economically noisy. Chaos is normal. That's wonderful for you. You look at how notes get cleaned, pressed, sorted, and sent back out. You look at how often people complain, how often authorities investigate, and you start thinking like a parasite that learned the heartbeat of its host. Then you do what every overconfident scammer does. You build a number that lets you sleep. A personal issue of hundreds of millions of escudos, you tell yourself, could slide in without upsetting the official machinery. You're not trying to crash the system, you're trying to surf it. The real limit isn't purely economic, it's human. It's the moment a board clerk decides to stop trusting and start checking. How do you counterfeit without counterfeiting? By doing the most illegal thing that still looks legal, you manufacture permission. A design already exists, the 500 Escudo note of the Vasco da Gama type. It has history. People have seen it. People trust it. You don't need to invent the note. You need to impersonate the authority that orders the note. So you and your network approach Waterloo and Sons in London, the established printer that has already produced this exact note for the Bank of Portugal. You wrap everything in secrecy and importance. You frame it as a sensitive insider arrangement linked to Angola, where discretion is supposedly the whole point. A key agreement is signed in early January 1925 for Waterloo to print 200,000 more 500 Escudo notes. You can almost hear the universe laughing. Your crime is now a purchase order. And then the most absurd moment of your life happens. The presses run, ink dries, paper stacks. Your fraud isn't theoretical anymore. It's heavy. It smells like fresh ink. It spends. You didn't fake the money. You faked the authority behind the money. Once an official printer produces the notes, they look real to everyone who has to handle them. You have perfect money. Now, how do you turn it into power without screaming criminal in the loudest language? Patterns. You treat the notes like radioactive material. Never dump them in one place. Never move them in one obvious wave. Never let the same eyes see too much volume. So you do something boring on purpose. You cycle the notes through normal banking behavior, deposits in one branch, withdrawals in another, exchanges into other denominations. You convert fresh into ordinary until the notes stop feeling special. You also lean on foreign exchange, where the line between official rules and real life is flexible. Where there's an official rate, there's usually a shadow rate, and you pay people commissions to move your money through those shadows. The joke you tell yourself: you're laundering banknotes that are physically legitimate. The paper isn't the giveaway, only the authorization is. You don't spend like a thief. You spend like a system, small steps, repeated, scalable, until the extraordinary becomes normal. What's the smartest way to hide a fraud? Build an institution that makes the fraud look like business. So you help create a bank. Banco Angola e Metropole, a real name, real offices, real paperwork, real employees. The kind of thing that makes ordinary people assume you must be legitimate. Because who lets criminals open a bank? Regulators demand capital. In fact, authorization is granted with conditions, including that the capital be fully subscribed, a minimum sum that's supposed to filter out unserious players. But you show up with stacks of 500 Escudo notes. In the legal record, the bank is authorized in late June 1925, and because you already control enormous quantities of notes, you can meet the capital condition. Your scam has now dressed itself up as compliance. Now you can move money at scale while wearing the costume of normal business. Deposits, loans, asset purchases, and every transaction makes your story look more real. Institutions don't just store money, they manufacture legitimacy. If you can build a bank, you can wrap your fraud in the appearance of normal life. Can you buy the central bank with the money you forced into existence? This is where your ambition stops being get rich and becomes rewrite history. Because if you control the Bank of Portugal, you don't just control an institution, you control the storyteller. You can try to turn your illegal reality into legal reality after the fact. So you start buying influence and shares. And the numbers are both hilarious and terrifying. To gain effective control, you need 45,000 voting shares. By mid-September 1925, you've crossed 7,000. By the end of September, you're around 9,000. By early November, you control about 10,000. It's impressive, it's aggressive, it's also not enough. And you know what the market knows before the state does. Control fights back. The closer you get, the more every other player starts paying attention. Banks, newspapers, rivals, officials. You tell yourself you just need more time. Time is the only ingredient you can't print. You can't buy legitimacy instantly. You can only try to corner it slowly before anyone realizes what game you're playing. Why do you go back for more, when more is usually what kills you? Because the first batch makes you rich. The second batch makes you dangerous. You push the printer again. In the legal record, the unauthorized notes arrive in two waves. 200,000 in February and March of 1925, and then 380,000 more from late summer into November. That's 580,000 extra notes squeezed into reality. And a mind-bending detail. Hundreds of thousands of those unauthorized notes are described as exact duplicates. Banknotes identical to earlier legitimate notes down to serial numbers, except for subtle tests known only to the printer. This is where your scam stops feeling like a clever lie and starts feeling like a glitch in the universe. But volume does something you can't fully control. It creates witnesses. More notes means more bundles, more transactions, more clerks, more cashiers, more bored employees with nothing to lose by asking one annoying question. And the press starts sniffing around. A newspaper asks where this new bank gets its money. At first you laugh. Of course they can't prove anything, you think. The notes are perfect. The bank is real. The paperwork is thick. Then you remember the oldest danger in finance. You don't need proof to trigger panic. Sometimes you just need a headline. You hate this part, but you also admire it. The system, when it finally wakes up, gets loud. Scaling turns a secret into a pattern. Patterns attract attention. Attention is poison. How do they catch you if the banknotes are perfect? They don't catch you with microscopes. They catch you with counting. In Porto, people notice something off. Too many crisp 500 Escudo notes. Bundles that don't behave like normal bank bundles. Investigators do the one thing your fraud cannot survive. They sort notes by series and serial number. Late on the night of December 5th, or early on the 6th, they find it. 4 pairs of notes, 8 pieces of paper that shouldn't be able to coexist. Same serial numbers. That's the moment you feel completely scammed, not by your victims, by reality. Because one serial number can't honestly belong to 2 pieces of paper. And then comes your nightmare, the emergency lever. A decision is made to withdraw the entire Vasco da Gama 500 Escudo series and exchange it for other issues. The decision is publicly carried in newspapers on December 7th. The exchange period is set to expire on December 22nd and then extended to the 26th. Perfect paper is beaten by impossible math. If serial numbers collide, you've proven extra money exists, no matter how real it looks. What happens when the system decides your money is suddenly worth nothing? This is the part that terrifies you more than arrest. Because the system doesn't have to rob you. It can simply declare a new reality. When a central bank withdraws a denomination, people hear, "That paper might soon be just paper." Rumors ignite, crowds form, confidence wobbles, and now your greatest weapon, trust, turns into your greatest vulnerability. Then comes the cleanup. The engineering nightmare of separating illicit notes from legal ones when they appear identical. It's possible only because the printer has production traces, subtle identifiers and records that can be cross-referenced to distinguish origin. Recovery efforts are massive. One account reports that 209,718 illicit notes were exchanged for good notes and offers a best estimate that 363,602 illicit notes were ultimately recovered, leaving only 6,680 never found. That should make you feel proud. It should also make you feel sick. Because you didn't just steal. You forced an entire country to perform emergency surgery on its own money. Answer, micro question. A banknote is worth what the system will honor. Once the system stops honoring it, value evaporates instantly. In the end, what's more dangerous? You, the brilliant scammer, or the institution that keeps trusting the next piece of paper? You want to say it's you. It feels good, it feels cinematic. But the ugly truth is funnier and scarier. Brilliant scammers will always exist. The real disaster happens when institutions stay confidently trusting, when they treat looks official as the same thing as is verified. And yes, of course institutions have to trust. That's the point. If nobody trusted anything, nothing would move. Money would stop, trade would stop, society would become a very quiet museum. So the real question isn't whether institutions trust, it's where they trust. Your scam lives in a specific weak spot, the handoff. The gap between the issuer and the vendor, between approved and confirmed. When that gap exists, you don't need to break a lock. You just need to walk through an open door while everyone assumes someone else locked it. You are the spark, but the institution's confidence is the fuel. Without trusting institutions, scammers stay small. With them, a scam becomes history. So why does this still feel unfinished, like the room never fully aired out? Because even after courts assign blame and authorities recover most of the notes, the story leaves behind the worst kind of residue, unanswered questions. How did so many people accept the story without demanding independent confirmation? Why did certain warning signs get ignored or filed away in the name of discretion? Why did it take so long for the duplicate serial number reality check to happen? And the one that should bother you the most, as the scammer and as the audience, how close did you actually get? Because you weren't trying to buy a car. You were trying to buy the referee. Some questions linger on purpose. They keep a scandal useful. They keep it alive. Now here's your final uncomfortable laugh. How can money be both real and illegal at the same time? Because real is what people accept in their hands, while legal is what the issuer authorizes. A banknote can be physically genuine and still be illegal if it entered the world without permission. You didn't prove that money is fake. You proved that money is permission. And permission, this is the creepy punchline, still gets forged. Sleep well.